Caroline Jury, Mrs. World arrested over Sri Lanka pageant bust-up. Police in Sri Lanka have arrested the reigning Mrs. World Caroline Jury after she allegedly injured a fellow beauty queen in an onstage bust-up. Pushpika De Silva won the Mrs. Sri Lanka title in a televised ceremony on Sunday, and former winner Mrs. Jury was meant to crown her. Instead, she pulled the crown off Mrs. De Silva's head, claiming she could not hold the title as she was divorced. The winner later said she is separated from her husband, not divorced. Mrs. Sri Lanka is part of the Mrs. World Beauty Pageant series for married women. The winners of each country's title progress to the overall Mrs. World competition. There is a rule that prevents women who have already been married and are divorced. So I'm taking steps to make the crown go to second place, Mrs. Jury told the audience. She placed the crown on the runner-up, prompting a tearful Mrs. De Silva to walk off stage. A video of the incident showed. In a Facebook post, Mrs. De Silva said she went to hospital to be treated for head injuries after the incident. There are a lot of single moms like me today who are suffering in Sri Lanka, she later told the press conference. This crown is dedicated to those women, those single moms who are suffering to raise their kids alone. She added that she would take legal action for the unreasonable and insulting way she was treated. Another Sri Lankan model involved in the fracas was also arrested. Police arrested Caroline Jury and model Chula Bhatmendra over Sunday's incident on charges of simple heart and criminal cause. Police spokesman Ajit Rohana told the BBC. Both Mrs. Jury and the chief organizer of Mrs. Sri Lanka pageant, Chandimal Jayasinghe, were questioned by police on Thursday. Mrs. Jury and Chula Bhatmendra were bailed to appear in Colombo Magistrates Court on 19 April. Mrs. De Silva has now been recrowned, and the pageant's organizers have said they expect Mrs. Jury to issue a public apology. Mr. Jayasinghe told the BBC earlier, "We are disappointed. It was a disgrace how Caroline Jury behaved on this stage, and the Mrs. World organization has already begun an investigation on the matter." The Mrs. Sri Lanka World Beauty Pageant is a major contest in the country. The Prime Minister's wife was among the guests at the ceremony. News taken from BBC. Please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.